Hi, in this video we're going to look at making a quilted waistcoat. So this is the pattern that I'll be working from, and I'm doing this waistcoat here. So we're going to quilt it and see how it comes out. For the quilted waistcoat, this is the fabric I am using, and this print is the opposite way from what we usually cut. So my straight grain is here and my cross grain is going there, so I'm going to have to cut it on the cross grain because of the print. So first thing first, I traced out my pattern pieces that I need. So I'm going to place them on the fabric like this. It's all placed on, and I'm going to leave an amount around it because I found when we quilting, the inside fabric always moves a bit, so you get one short end, one long end. So if we can do it with extra amount around it and then pack some more in, it should be fine. So I have laid out the pattern and pinned it on, and I have also, if you can see, I've also drawn around the pattern, giving you about 2 centimeters allowance all the way around the pattern, except for the center front. I haven't put anything on the center front or the center back. Right, so I have cut out the main pieces, and as you can see with this pattern, I've left 2 centimeters around it, but nothing at the center front or the center back. So I'm going to cut out the lining just the same, and then I'm going to look at doing the wadding. But before you do the wadding, after you've cut these out, before you do the wadding, you need to join the centre back seam, which is over here. Let's see, centre back seam. We need to join the centre back seam, and we also need to sew up the dart before we can put it onto the wadding. The wadding that we have is a 2-ounce wadding, so it's like this, quite fine, and that should give us a nice texture for when we start quilting. I have cut out the fabric and the lining, and the next thing I have to do are the tailor's tack for my dart, because I'm going to dot the front and sew the centre back seams together before I place this on the quilting fabric. So if you don't remember how to do tailor tacks, I'm going to show you. So I've got 4 layers of fabric, so I'm putting the needle with the thread through the 4 layers, and I'm leaving long tails. So I've gone through all 4 layers, and I'm going through the 4 layers again, and I've got a long tail. I'm just going to cut this long tail and cut the loop, and then what I'm going to do, let's just move it a little bit round so we can all see it. What I'm going to do is to take the pins out and pull each layer apart, starting from the bottom layer, and cut the threads. So, take this out, this one. So that's tailor's tacks, for those who don't remember how to do it. So, what is it? So we see, if you can see here, this is the first layer. So I'm going to put my hand on the bottom and just cut in between. That's one layer. and then carefully move it down to the next layer. Put my hands where the thread is on the bottom, pull it apart. That's why we need long threads, and cut it in between. So that's 2 layers, and we'll do the next layer. Keep my hands on the threads, pull it apart and cut it in between. So that's all 4 layers done. So now I can take the pattern off because I don't really need it again. And I'm going to do my tail, my darts on this one, and on the back I'm going to take this pattern off as well. On the back I'm going to do my centre back seam. So here's a pattern. So this is this seam here at the centre back that goes all the way down to here at 1.5. So I'm just finishing the last dart. So remember, if you're not sure about darts, you can draw a line from here to the end, and so I'm going to go, oops, pin, right. I'm getting to the end of the dart. So remember, your dart's like a long triangle. So I've done all the pieces now, so what I'm going to do now is go to the ironing board, press everything, and then lay onto the fabric, not the fabric, the fleece. Here are my pieces. They're pinned and they're ready to be cut. So remember that the wadding doesn't really have a grain, so you should be very economical with this. And where I've got my dart, I've put 2 pins in to hold the dart, and this is where I've got my centre back seam, which I sewed together. And if you look on this side, pressed it open, and make sure it stays pressed open when you are doing it. So I'm going to cut the pieces out now and then pin it on to the lining. Right, so this front is been cut with the wadding, so you can see it here, and we are ready to go. So wadding on that side. So all we need to do now is to transfer our pins from one side to the other, so that they all more or less stay the same shape. And make sure your darts are also in the same place. So next I'm going to go to the machine and start quilting. So I'm going to turn this to the other side. So make sure you put enough pins in to hold the fabric firm whilst you are quilting. And the first row of quilting that I'm going to do is down the centre front, just sew a straight line down the centre front. You always have to keep an eye at the back of the fabric to see what's happening, because sometimes the back of your fabric can get caught up, and unpicking is not a nice thing. You can see it probably better on this side. Okay, so most of the machines, they've got a foot with the hole in the back, and I'm going to put this guide in it. So I put the guide in it, and I decide how much I want my, how wide I want my quilting to be. So say I want it 1.5 centimetres wide, I would fix the guide as 1.5 centimetres, or it could be 2 centimetres, all depends on what you want. And then I will just tighten the screw at the back. And when I sew, you need to have one line already in place. But when you sew, the guide should be able to guide you. I'm just going to take this, bring the guide up. So I've got quite a few lines already in place. So when I'm sewing, I would put the guide on the line that I've already done, because you need to do at least one line, and then sew using the guide as a guide to do all my other lines. Because the back of the waistcoat, it has a centre back seam which I've pressed it. What I'm going to do to start off, I am going to sew either side of the centre back seam. You can always sew in the middle, so you're doing like a stitch in the ditch kind of effect. This is the first stitch that I've done on the back. So this is just going to hold my backs together. And on the other side, that's what it looks like on the other side. So I have finished all the quilting on all three pieces, as you can see there. And this is the reason why I cut it bigger, because as you can see, the lining moves, so you do need that extra bigness, because on the other side it looks a bit like this. So now I'm going to cut out the actual pattern. So here's one that I have put in position. So this is a front and it's got a dart on it. So if you're going to cut the actual pattern shape out, you need to close the dart, just pin it together, and then lay the pattern onto the fabric. And then what I'm going to do is just cut around it. So pin it on and cut around it. So this is the back section. And remember, our back had a seam down the middle. So what I've done, I've folded back the seam allowance, matching it to where the seam is. And what I'm going to do next is just to cut around it, and then I'm going to fold it in half. Okay, so here's the back folded in half. Let's get the whole view of it. So I've cut one half, folded it in half along the seam line, flipped it over, and now I'm just going to cut the shape again. Right, so all our shapes are now cut out. So I've got two fronts and one back. So what I'm going to do next is to stitch the fronts together at the shoulder seams and at the side seams. So I'm going to stitch all four together, and then we're going to bind it. So you need to get some binding, bias binding. The colour you want to match probably on the main side, and this is 18 mils, so you could use 15 or 18 mils bias binding, and this is a poly cotton bias binding, because I find they're much thicker than the cotton ones. And you need about 5 meters of bias binding, because it's going to go on all your seams and it's going to go around the edges. So take the seam allowance that the pattern has told you. In this case it's 1.5, and it's the second line on the machine. So sew your shoulders and your side seams together. Okay, so that's my shoulders done. So now I'm doing my sides. Right, Right, so after you've done your seams, then we're going to put the binding on. To put your binding on, you're doing it on the wrong side of the waistcoat, and we're going to start sewing it onto the front shoulder of the waistcoat and the front side seams, because we're going to sew it on like this, trim it, and then sew it again, and the seams are going to go to the back. So where the fold of your binding is, if you line it up to your stitch line and sew in your stitch line, that should, so mine is about here. I'm going to cut this off so I could show you how to do one completely. So we're going to sew in our stitch line. Okay. And when you go backwards and forward, go backwards and forwards just inside of you, like here, about 1 centimetre in, go backwards and forwards. And sew in your stitch line all the way to the end. Okay, that's done. And then what we're going to do, we're going to trim off the excess that we can see. So we're trimming all that off. And then we're going to open our seam and push the binding backwards so the binding covers the seam. And make sure that it is flat underneath. I'm putting 2 pins here just to hold it. Make sure your underneath seam is flat, and see, so it's laying flat. If you can iron it to help it lay flat, but it must be laying flat. Always check it's flat. I like to stress it. So we're going to sew on the edge of the binding all the way along. So when it's finished, it looks like this on this side. Nice and neat. And on the other side, there's a line of sewing, but you don't really see it that much. So do this to all of your inside seams. There's a little tip for sewing the side seams, because you have lots of lines going up and you're not sure which is your 1.5. So if you keep the edge of your material to the 1.5 marker on the throat plate of the machine, and then you could judge that you're sewing the right amount. So you could do it that way. But do all 4 seams, and you see on here, even though I'm seeing a bit of wadding, it doesn't really matter, because it will be covered, so I'm not really worried about that. All the seams are now sewn, so all the insides will have lovely enclosed seams. You can't see any of them on all the inside. So what I have to do now, I'm going to cut off 1.5 centimeters from around the neck and around the sleeves, because when I put the binding on, I don't want the seam allowance on. So this is what you have to do next. You could either mark it out Actually, probably you should mark it out. But as you see, I'm cutting 1.5 centimeters all the way around. So I've cut 1.5 off from the bottom and around the front and neck of my waistcoat, and I'm about to do the armhole. So I've just did a snip 1.5 centimeters in the curve, doesn't matter where you start, and just use it as a guide for cutting off the 1.5. So basically, anywhere that your binding is going to go on the edges, this is where we don't want those seam allowances. And I'm going to attach my edging binding now. So I'm going to start at the side seam, and I'm going to fold over the edge of my binding, open one side out and fold it over, so we have a nice little fold about 0.5 centimeter, and put it here and put a pin in so that it's edge to edge, and I'm going to sew around the armhole with the binding open. Yes, so you've got to start on your wrong side, and we're going to sew it onto the wrong side, and then we're going to flip it over onto the right side. So when you're sewing this on, don't pull the bindings tight, just sew it on so it's relaxed and edge to edge, and you're sewing in the crease. Okay, I'm nearly at the other end now. When you reach in the other end, if you overlap your binding by about 2 centimeters and cut it off, cutting off threads as well, and then keep on sewing. So I've got a slight overlap there. Okay. So it should look like this. The edge of your binding should be in line with the edge of your waistcoat, because what we're going to do next is to flip the whole thing over to the right side and fold it like this, and then we're going to sew on the right side. Okay. Right, let's go. So you may be a lot of stopping and starting, but where we want to sew is right on the edge of the binding. Okay, we're at halfway mark. And then if you go over where you started and then cut it off, so the outside should look like this and the inside like that. So it should all look really neat. So if you do that to your other armhole, this is when we're going to do the corners, because remember I've done the sleeves and they were just round. So we're going to start off with sewing the binding on the wrong side. On the wrong side?
Wrong. Yes, around the halfway.
And fold the beginning in a bit. So always start with a folded edge. So I'm going to just sew all the way around, just keeping it edge to edge. And a piece de resistance is when I come to the corners.
Joints.
The corners.
Okay, alright.
So keep it edge to edge and sew more or less in the crease. So when you come to near the corner, if you just mark it with a pin, about 6 mils away from the edge, so that's the edge there. I'm going to put a pin in here, so this is where I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to stop there and then sew to this corner.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop at the 6 mils and then angle it and sew to the corner and sew off. Okay? Then I'm going to, Joe. I'm going to put this is going to be at an angle, like this. So basically it's an angle to the corner. And then I'm going to put this on top, but I'm going to match. It's a bit fiddly, but I'm going to match the top. So if I take this away, we've got like a little right angle in there. And the top looks like this. Match, match, match. It's a bit fiddly, match, match, match. I want the edges together, so that's why I'm moving it a bit. It's moved enough. Yes? It's alright, I've got 2 points.
So you're matching the bottom edge?
Yeah.
To edge.
The bottom is at an angle, but the top is matched squared to the edge. So then I'm going to sew straight over that squared edge. And go all the way down. I'm going to do another one so you will see. So here I've come into my next edge, so mark out the 6 mils or 1/4 inch, whichever one you want to call it. So it's there. Sew to where it is, and then to the corner. So I'm doing the same thing again, yeah? Sew off at the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Joan, can you take that for a second? I've got a cough.
And then I'm going to, because you're sewing to this corner here, it's easy to fold it across and then fold it down.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So remember that, because I sewed off at the corner, so fold it across and then fold it down. And then I'm going to stitch down, yeah? I'm not going to go all the way.
I can't.
Recording.
Oh, it's carrying on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, she must have pressed pause.
So I just...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just carry on. Oh, you
Yeah,
could just carry
okay.
on. Right, so I'm going to turn the binding to the right side. On the wrong side, it's already got that corner already.
Okay.
So I'm turning it to the right side, and when you're sewing, you're covering the stitch with yarn, sewing on the edge. So when you come to the corner, look which side that's been pleated. So this has gone over that side. So you should have enough to do a really nice pleat. This is
Mitre.
Mitre. So, thank you, Joan. Thank you, mitre.
Terminology.
Okay. So sometimes it can be a bit fiddly, but you have more to fold under than if you did it the other way. And make sure your needle's down in the work, because I could feel mine moving. So you should have a nice mitre there. And see, it was easy for me to fold, and make sure they're both following the same direction as well. And I'm using a pin to help me put the edge to the edge. So you need to sew across and catch that folded edge. I think I've caught it. Before you turn. We're going to look at I'm going to stop there. Do you want me to do the other folded edge? Yeah. So doing the other side of the corners, I think they're trickier than the inside. So what I've just done is sewn all the way straight down. On the top one, I've pulled the fabric down, and on the corner, let's get some corner here, I've just creased the fabric up. So it's a bit, so you have a slight crease in it. That looks a bit like this. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm just going to pin it, but I can't take it off the machine because I'm on the machine. So it should look like that. So let me do the corner and then I'll show it to you once I've done it. You need that, the material to have a slight, oh, it's moved. And it is tricky to have that slight fold in it. And then once you put the needle down onto the fold and then pivot the work around, so you're sewing at another angle. But let me do some and I will show you what it looks like. Right here, okay. So this is what my corner looks like. So as you can see, we've got a slight fold here and I've just pivoted the machine there. So it should look like a square on both sides. Okay, so let me finish the whole thing and then I'll show you the finished product. Here is a finished waistcoat. So it's got all the binding on, down the corners. So let's see how yours look like, and that's the inside. All done.